the center of hope in the United States.
They wouldn't have fucked me if they knew I was wearing Reeboks. Yeah, okay.
All right, and we are live.
All right, I am recording. From the industrial wastelands of Michigan to the fruited plains of Iowa, this is the American
Why
Reef
relate
Factory.
to its sheer perversity?
You are the dead. Remain exactly where you are. Make no move until you are ordered.
We burn them to ashes and then burn the ashes. That's our official motto.
Now we can see you. Clasp your hands behind your heads. Stand out in the middle of the room. Stand back to back.
Who can explain the fascination of fire? What draws us to it, whether we're young or old?
Here comes a candle to light you to bed. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head.
And welcome to the American Reed Factory podcast. This is Nathan.
This is Conlon.
Andrew.
And we're all here. Here we are again. It's time to see
You haven't been able to get rid of me yet.
Conlon.
Huh?
It's time to see something cool. Conlon's going to show us something cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got some more Lego Technics, which is probably
All
the
right.
last. So probably the last of the Lego Technic. So,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
whoops, I didn't mean to do that. How do I? There we go. So I don't know. So this is a Formula E one.
Okay. That's so cool.
And
I didn't even know they made a Formula E Lego kit.
yeah, this is the Porsche version of a Formula E car. There's no steering, all the wheels are straight, but it's interesting mechanical features. It has wind up wheels, and so you can like pull it back and then let it go and it'll move. So like I have it locked in right now. If I press this down,
Sounds like a real Formula E car.
yeah, which don't make a lot of sounds because they're electric. Now you just need some crunching when they run into each other because the tracks are so narrow. So I don't even know who drives on a Porsche. Actually, like for Formula E, I know there's a Mercedes team. I think there's a McLaren team, but I think it's called Arrows because McLaren owns this Arrow team, which I don't even know what they do. They just do racing. I think the most team I know from a Formula E is there's a Chinese tech company called Techchita.
Cool.
And they've won championships, so they're good. And the other model I have, as I talk away from the microphone.
Oh, wow.
Yep, that's the. Jesus.
That's a big one.
This is the McLaren F1 2022 car. It's a Lego set. So,
What does that weigh?
I don't know, maybe like
20 pounds?
Nah, it's more like 3-5 pounds, maybe.
Oh, okay. Must not
It's
be as
just-
dense as it looks.
Well, I remember like all the Lego Technic stuff. It's like holes everywhere.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, this is a Technics. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of impressive. I don't like how they do the front. The whole proportions of the front wing are correct, but they doesn't really get off that whole Venetian blind effect of the actual wings. But considering like they're using like already made pieces, I guess it's clever. So
Yeah.
the wheels do turn by the steering wheel back in the cockpit, but there's not really a whole lot of cool like engineering stuff in this. It just looks cool. Although I do like the suspension. They do work, and they do work kind of like they do in F1 cars because the spring is laid down here horizontally, and then it kind of transfers it to the arm, so that springs in a
The inverted spring arm. Okay.
yeah, which is vaguely how they actually work on F1 cars. Not actually, but kind of.
So that thing actually hit a real pothole. It's still probably break, right?
I'm not sure if break because these cars are really low to the ground, so they probably just bottom out before they break the suspension.
Bounce off the ground. Yeah.
Well, no, I was just trying to think of like an F1 track where they race through the deserted streets of Detroit. There's plenty of track area.
Then you're looking for Extreme E. Extreme E they're like they're electric powered SUV cars that race in places that are struck by ecological disasters from global warming and stuff. So they go race
Okay.
out in like deserts and stuff like that used to be riverbeds and stuff like that. And so they're actually pretty cool, but very sloppy races because they kick up the desert and nobody can see shit. So basically, whoever comes in first on the first turn wins.
That's an interesting dynamic to draw attention to global warming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what they're. It easily brings sponsors. So I also have an interesting setup because it's like it's not a full on race. It's kind of done in like segments. So it's like just kind of a shootout between two different cars, and it's kind of like almost like a tournament. And then every car has two racers. It has to be one woman and one man, and they alternate. So
if they did extreme E racing in Detroit, it wouldn't be from ecological disasters; it would be economic disasters.
Which they should do.
We could start our own extreme E league for the entire Rust Belt in the Midwest.
Well, I was just thinking of like other things you could draw the same parallels by. Dog shows where there used to be dog fight rings. look at this over here. Checkers takes the gold.
It does have a thing. It does expose the engine block where the valves pump up and down when you move the tire.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But I mean, all the other ones do that too. So, but this one is that. I mean, this is less impressive than the Batmobile thing. And then, like, technically, the DRS opens up, but not really.
Yeah.
So
Also more expensive than the Batman thing.
Oh yeah, this is 170. So, but that's more the F1 tax because all F1 shit is super dumb expensive. So, getting a normal ass T-shirt is like $60 for an F1 T-shirt. So,
and all it says is F1 on it.
I'm not sure about F1 branded. I'm talking about like you want a Ferrari T-shirt or a Red Bull T-shirt.
Well, I know
that fucking has advertising on it, and you're paying to advertise for other companies.
Hey, you know what's gonna happen? MLB's doing that next year. They put advertising on the jerseys to prove they're real. So if you want like a replica jersey, you want to have advertising. If you put an authentic jersey, it'll have advertising patches on it. And it's like, yeah, that's what people want. Pay extra money for advertising they didn't agree to.
Well, I mean, it's got advertising on here. We got we got Dell Technology. We got Maori Steel. We got Klipsch, which I think they make headphones.
Speakers and stuff. Yeah.
Toomey, CNBC, Pirelli. They don't. This is the star of the year. So like the new McLaren tires actually have the Google ring on it because they're sponsored by Google. The tires are
Nice.
just for McLaren though.
We got us a tire sponsor, boys and girls.
We got WebEx by Cisco, which is kind of like corporate Zoom calls. We got Arrow. We got Splunk. We got Golf. Of course, oil. We have the Mind, but that's actually about like what do you call that? Like psychological fitness or whatever.
Okay.
We have bitc.com, which that's a Bitcoin. We got FX Pro. Don't know what that is. Probably another Bitcoin. Who knows? We got Koust. And we got FAI Aviation Group. So that's the advertising that came with the $170 Lego model. Which actually for the size of this thing actually isn't bad. Like there are like Star Wars models about the same size that cost about $400. So
yeah, it's Star Wars tax too. Yeah. That's cool.
No, I mean, I really like Lego stuff. It's just that most of the time I can't think of like where I'm going to store it once I build it.
Yeah, that's why this is the last of the stuff because I'm more impressed with the engineering side of like putting together and the fun things they do. But like this one, it's like this is expensive and it barely does stuff. So
you want the robot arm.
Well, I know they make stuff where like they have all these motors and stuff and that you can put on them, but like those kits are expensive. And so you can like convert all these things basically into RC cars.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun, but I'm not going to do it. It's like, oh wow, I'm going to spend a day having fun with my Lego cars and then never play with them ever again. So yeah, that's why I got to stop it.
No. So. Let's see, new project for me. I don't know if I talked about this. This is the Tamaya.
This is the tank that's winning the Ukraine war.
Well, maybe not in this era.
Well, tanks aren't running the wars. Rockets are. Shoulder-fired rockets.
Sorry, this is a really bad joke.
This is the Russian heavy self-propelled gun, JSU-152. It came out right at the end of World War II as a Tiger killer. It has a 150 millimeter gun on the front of it. This doesn't rotate. This is self-propelled artillery.
Yeah.
It had extremely heavy frontal armor, the thickest glacis plate ever put on any kind of mobile vehicle. The reason I'm doing this, interestingly enough, is because the Russians have destroyed or damaged in Ukraine, where all my Chernobyl models come from. But this tank in 1986 is the only tank in history ordered to attack a nuclear reactor. Because what this tank was supposed to do with its huge gun was knock a hole in the side of the reactor containment, because they were worried it was filling up with water and they were going to have a steam explosion. But when they went and trialed it out, they figured out, well, one shot wasn't big enough because they wanted to put a pipe full of liquid nitrogen in there, but you couldn't get close to the buildings. It was so radioactive. So they're going to have this tank fire its shell. They found out the first hole wasn't big enough, and if it fired a second time, it would knock the containment down. So, and by containment, I mean the cement wall, not the Chernobyl reactor didn't have a containment, which is why it was such a fiasco. But anyway, they brought 6 of them to the Chernobyl site in 86, and they figured out very quickly they had to demolish all those buildings around the place so they could get in and work on them. And because this had much heavier armor than a construction vehicle, they just pressed them into service as demolition vehicles. And all they did was bash down houses and some cement structures. Because the wood, because it's a natural product, would love to absorb radiation. And if you sawed it with saws or burned it, it would spread that radiation like wildfire. So the best thing to do was use these tanks to crush the houses and buildings down around the reactor so you get closer to it and work on it. And the reason they used these tanks was because they had this thick frontal armor, which gave them a little more protection against the massive amounts of radiation they were dealing with. So because the Russians destroyed the company that makes my Chernobyl dioramas, I'm just going to make my own diorama of this tank destroying buildings around it. So that's why this tank model has it has no skirts or anything around the treads. They tore all that stuff off because the ground was so radioactive. They didn't want the mud to get crushed up under there. So these tanks were stripped down of everything. Some of the later ones, they even took the gun off the front and just filled it with lead so that they could continue to use them. But these were left at the Chernobyl site near the reactor. There was one of them sitting there. Assumably it broke down, but it was so radioactive they didn't want to move it. So that's my next project.
Oh, I was wondering if you're going to talk about how like there were 7 busloads of soldiers taken to Belarus hospital because they dug trenches near Chernobyl or whatever.
Not only did they dig trenches near Chernobyl, they dug trenches in the Red Forest area, which I don't know if you've ever seen those pictures from the top when the reactor blew up. All those pine trees went from green to red in 8 hours because they were exposed to so much radiation. And they later had to crush those down and bury them in the ground, and they sprayed what was called plasticizer around them, which is essentially epoxy by today's standards, to keep them entombed and to keep the dust down, because the dust is where all the radioactive particles are. And the Russian soldiers that went there were digging defensive trenches in the Red Forest into some of the most radioactive ground you'll find in the world. Some of them were exposed to 150 times the normal background radiation. Which is amazing. You'd think they would know, hey, should we dig here at this Chernobyl site? Sure, why not? What could go wrong? What could be in the ground here that would kill any of us?
Well, my favorite quote was a general from Russia talking about, like, hey, we dug trenches here during World War II, and, like, everybody was fine. And it was like, yeah, it's like, yes, during World War II, Chernobyl went off.
Something was different in World War II. World War II ended with with nuclear things being discovered and used. But yeah, just when I first heard that, I think I talked about this last week too, but I'll just reiterate.
We did. We talked about it off camera,
Oh yeah, when I first heard about this, that they were sending soldiers for heavy radiation exposure. I don't know if it was lethal or not, but it was very bad. I thought, well, that's propaganda. There's no way the Russians didn't know, hey, you can't dig around here because they're the ones that contained it. It's like, no, I guess it was true. They just did it. And I'm like, wow, okay. Not only did they do it, but they used entrenching tools, shovels. They used like equipment to dig. It's like, are you insane? I know not to dig there. I've never been there in my life. They said, where should we dig defensive trenches, Nathan? Nowhere. Everything, there's all kinds of crap buried in the ground here because a dying bankrupt empire was trying to do a quickie cleanup on the world's worst industrial accident. So I don't think we should go digging around here and see what happens. This is a natural defensive structure by dint of you don't want to shell it or fire rockets into it because you don't know what you might blow up into the atmosphere. But, you know, apparently the Russian army has different doctrine than me, I guess, because it's okay to dig slit trenches and fortifications in a radioactive containment zone, a place where no one will be able to live for at least 50,000 years, unless we can figure out some way to clean it all up before then and now. But there's no oil there, so there's no real hurry to clean that up. Like if they found oil under Chernobyl, it's like, oh, well, immediately. It's like, it's all clean. We dumped it into the Black Sea. You just take it out on trucks. But yeah.
It is like well, I'm not sure how it is now. It used to be kind of a weird like wildlife sanctuary where they'd like put they put extinct animals there and they would thrive. It was weird.
Yeah. There's no human activity there.
Yeah.
Except the exploded nuclear reactor they've contained. And there's also a lot of nuclear fuel stuff stored there. It's like Europe's reservoir for it because, like, why not? You're not going to hurt it by putting more there.
It's already fucked.
Yeah, we can't make this worse. I mean, the only way we can make it worse is to actually detonate a nuclear bomb over it, or that might make it better. I don't know. But yeah, I was shocked when I heard that. I was like, okay, wow, this is these are the people we were afraid of for 70 years. This is what they're doing. It's okay if it's like somebody else's blown up reactor and you didn't know what they did. Like, this was your reactor. Ukraine was a Soviet socialist republic when this happened. Like, the Russians cleaned it up.
Well, I mean, just try and follow like all the day-to-day stuff on Reddit, and like Russia's either tactical decisions or just what they're doing, like relying on radio and cell phone communications because they've knocked down the communication networks in Ukraine. So that's why they're getting their generals killed and like all this shit that's happening to them. They can't stop because they keep like, oh yeah, we're just gonna use these communications that everybody can just tap into and listen to us all the time because we're idiots and we don't have our own fucking like actual communication system that's, you know, encrypted or like secure in any way. Or just like, hey, we don't believe these guys have anything going for them at all. This is use these World War I rifles. Now we're out of all the good stuff. Like,
yeah, they're using like Mosey Nagant, like bolt action rifles because they just don't have any. Well, I mean, knowing the history, the only time the Red Army was scary was World War II, when their backs were against the wall and they were looking at extinction, and the tactics they used were absolutely the most like brutal, didn't care about casualties, didn't care who died. And it's like, oh, well, let's see, their doctrine hasn't changed. They're still just using the same, you know, tactics of like, well, what do? We just send men in until everyone's dead. It's like, hey, can we approach this from like a different angle? Maybe use some strategy. It's like, no, too much thought will go into that. And when people start thinking, they start coming up with their own ideas, and this is bad. I can only guess. I don't know. I mean, I know Russia's been in bad shape since like 2008, so it really shouldn't surprise anyone that this, because, you know, in the Cold War, it was always like the Russian bear is coming. The Russians have us beat technologically. They have better strategy. Their soldiers are bigger, stronger, more well-trained. All throughout the Cold War, they were saying that. And then the Soviet Union collapsed, and we're like, oh, we got sold a bill of goods. It's like the only thing that made these people scary was nuclear weapons. Like, we could easily defeat these people especially if they attacked us and stretched their supply lines. It's like we would just annihilate them. And they knew that. The people that were planning and running the government at that time knew how bad the Russians were, but they didn't tell the public that.
Well, they've also had like a recent military buildup where they dumped a bunch into military, and then someone's saying that like because they put too much into air and sea stuff that took away from some of their land.
Yeah.
They still put a bunch of money into it. And now we're seeing that like, well, apparently all that money was pilfered by the oligarchs. So
Yeah, the money for their scary like Arc 3 armor upgrades on their tanks and stuff, like and the T-14 Armata tank that's supposed to be like the best tank in the world, you know, all 30 of them, best tank in the world. Apparently most of that money went to like these yachts they're confiscating. Like that's where the Era and Arc armor went. And
to be fair, is killing them with kindness and luxury is way easier than killing them with bullets. So I mean, the pleasure yachts were a definite must spend. I mean, I guess I haven't seen the Arc 14, so I don't know what that tank looks like, and I didn't know anybody was actually still developing main battle tanks since drones are way cheaper.
No, the Germans have a new one, the Russians have a new one, the British have a new one. We won't build new ones. They like the Congress tried to make them. Like, we have a new tank for you, and the Army was like, we don't need it. Just like we didn't need battleships in World War II, we don't need tanks now. It's like it's too expensive and they're too easy to destroy. And
yeah, the Marines got rid of their tank division like a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just between IEDs that are way cheaper, cruise missiles, drones.
Well, yeah, we're talking about like how long does it take to train somebody to drive a tank, and how long does it take to train somebody to use a rocket launcher? It's like, well, we could be trained on a rocket launcher with a YouTube video.
Yeah. Like I said before, you're never too fat to use a javelin missile. I couldn't fit in the tank, but yeah, 15 minutes. It's like, you see when it's making this tone, you press the trigger. It's like, okay, easy enough. Now it goes far away, right? Because I'm going to have to waddle out of this combat. Like, I'm not going to shoot this and just have a big tell of where I am and have like angry guys with knives in their teeth come at me, because then I'm fucked. It's like that. But, yeah.
No, I mean, just like Ukraine doesn't. I mean, yes, they have a lot more newer adopted modern military tactics and advisors from the last like 5 to 10 years that have come in and helped reshape their military. They have a lot more new foreign surplus weaponry coming in and funding and everything else. But at the same time, I think they just have more of a will to fight too. I mean,
well, don't get me wrong. If the Russians have already conscripted 300,000 additional people that they're training up right now, and if they want to make a bloody push where they're willing to do full air, land, like, and artillery barrages on a insanely destructive scale, like, they could do that. But their economy is just being imploded behind them too. That's the other thing, is like it's just a question of like whose economy is going to die first. That's what we're looking at. It's like, yeah, the Russians could use strategic nuclear weapons if they wanted to, which would immediately trigger international intervention on a scale they're not ready to deal with. So they're not. But
and also, like, even though the success of the Ukrainian army, like, they can't develop, nor can we give them enough rockets to handle it.
No, I mean, yeah, they're in a losing war over time. They just can't. They don't have the population to keep fighting over a certain amount of time. They've already had huge problems with civilian populations being targeted every day, no matter if it's train station, school, hospital, maternity ward, whatever. Because you ever see that piece like 2 or 3 weeks ago where it was talking about the Syrian reporter was in Ukraine and he was covering the conflict and he was telling Ukrainian forces never to divulge any kind of like, oh, this is where civilians are. This is where the hospital's at. This is where food stockpile
there's like, no, the one I saw, well, it wasn't a reporter but it was some soldier took a selfie in like a school.
Yeah.
And then like the metadata got out there of where he was. And they're like, okay, so that's a military target now because we have soldiers in a school. So then that gave them the justification to basically just annihilate civilian populations.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like the war crime stuff is like, that's going to be real dodgy to prosecute because you're just handing weapons out to anyone. And so, like, technically, unless you're in a uniform, like, you're just some combatant in a war zone. Like, it's like, oh, well, they're going to just say, well, we were just shooting at people that were shooting at us. And it's like, You know, and America's just going to have to just look in the air and whistle like, oh, yeah, it's kind of what happens, when we do this shit. So it's going to be tough. Well, I believe what's going to happen is you're going to see it's going to be, how we had East and West Germany during the Cold War. You're going to have East and West Ukraine. It's going to just be divided up, and there'll be some center line because everyone will get sick of fighting, and Europe will not want their economy to collapse. Russia will not want their economy to collapse, and they'll come to some kind of agreement. Or Russia will just internally just fall apart, which is like, well, they've done that before. They've done that like 4 times in the last 200 years, and they always rebuild. So you just have another Putin, just a different leader.
Well, speaking of another war zone, we had F1 racing in Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
I think we talked about it a little bit last time, but there was a missile strike near the racetrack, like 6 miles away, at the Aramco oil facility.
Yep.
Which the track is sponsored by Aramco.
Yeah, but it wasn't nothing dramatic. Like no flaming debris flew on the track that they had to fly around or anything. So.
No, just a big giant oil fire in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, they were actually racing during the day, but they didn't tell anyone. No, I'm kidding. It's not true.
Yeah, see, and the drivers had a meeting about whether they were going to race there or not, or like maybe make a protest. But I think they're ultimately convinced that like, oh yeah, the government doesn't have to let us leave if they don't want us to, so we just better race and get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, because they had a meeting, and then like the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia also had a meeting. It's like, yeah, just don't let them leave the country, which is like a classic Saudi tactic.
Which is what they did to some of WWE people when they were there. So there's precedence for that. Although all the WWE people got out of there, but there was still that moment where they're like, oh, fuck this forever. Never coming back for Saudi.
Yeah, give me my $500,000 tax free and I'll see you later. Like
Goldberg got like $1 million to do one match there and he sucked at it.
He was probably pissed. Just go out there and lay down, let the guy tackle. He's like, yeah, where's my $1 million?
Well, he headbutted a wall, gave himself a concussion, and went out there and had one of the worst matches of his career.
God.
Nearly killed The Undertaker.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. Couple 60-year-old guys going at it.
Yeah. Actually, unfortunately, like the last time they were there, they actually had a really good show because all the other shows have been pretty much like very bad, but it's like they got paid a lot of money, and now like they're actually like decent. It's just the circumstances under which they're performed is gross. At least they let the women wrestle now, so there's that.
Yeah,
they have to be in full bodysuits, but they don't have to be in like weird baggy suits. Like they can show their face, but they don't have to have like a weird baggy t-shirt on top of like sweatpants or whatever.
Yeah,
still gross. Anyway, so despite of all that, it was a really great race.
Yeah.
Perez started on pole, and he was like pretty much on his way to win the race, and then Latifi crashed, and just before he crashed, Perez went in for a pit stop, and so he basically got fucked by the pit stop because everybody ahead of him got a free pit stop, and then he came out behind like in 4th place. So like basically through no fault of his own, he lost that race.
Yeah.
And then so it was once again Leclerc and Max Verstappen fighting it out, and once again Leclerc did the thing where he's like, "Go ahead, Max Verstappen," and he gets him on the next lap. And then like Max Verstappen actually like learned from the last 5 times he did that to him, and then he was like, they were both like playing chicken as to like, no, you go first, and they were actually going dangerously slow. But they were pretty far away from the rest of the pack, so it was okay for them to do that. But and then Max Verstappen got out ahead, and he kind of there was like another safety. Oh, there was another safety car, and that's really what brought Max Verstappen closer to Leclerc, and that's where he was able to get ahead of him. But actually, at the start of the race, like during like lap 8 or 9, you had for like 8 laps in a row, the Alpines were just like trading places back and forth.
Ocon and
Alonso.
Alonso were like, they were making jokes about it. It's like, is there any team rules here? Like, these guys are almost touching tires. Like, they're on the same team.
I mean, and they're literally talking to the team principal, Otmar Safenauer, and he's like, it's like, are you just gonna let them race? And he's like, the directive is to let them race. I guess later on they figured out, like I said, I think they made some hard line that if they can't do that if they're in the last 20 laps of the race.
Oh, okay. So there was like some kind of control at some point.
Yeah, but like that was early in the race, so they can do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah,
it actually was
bashing each other.
Oh yeah, they got really. Yeah, there's one where it was like they almost ran into each other, and because they're kind of clumsy, and then the rest of the time they're a bit more strategic about it and not getting too much in each other's way. But
yeah,
it was cool to watch. And it's funny because they had like the big BWT livery,
pink livery.
Yeah, and literally like the YouTube searches for that company like jumped like 1,000,000% or something. It was something crazy like that. So it was great advertising.
The other part of racing, boys. That's the other part. Like, well, we're not gonna finish first, but we can make it fun. Because if we crash into our own teammates, it's like, well, they're probably not gonna, unless you do flagrant safety stuff. They're not gonna call you for it.
And BWT is like a water purification company, so they don't have to worry about like looking bad because 2 cars wrecked.
Yeah,
because they're not a car company. I'm trying to think of the and like Lewis Hamilton like qualified in like, I don't know, like 16th, so that was like really bad for him, but he did come up to like 10th place.
Yeah, everyone was kind of impressed, like he's clawing his way up.
Yeah. I don't know, like I actually thought like a lot of people are down on him, and I was like, I mean, he raced his way from the back to the front. I mean, he got in the points. Like that doesn't
and everyone even the people were freely saying like, there's a problem with these Mercedes. Like this is something they're going to have to work through. They're going to figure it out though. But
they gave George Russell like a more conservative setup, and then they tried to do something different with Lewis's car, where they like gave it basically like no downforce. And so it could be really fast, but it was really tricky to drive, and so it did not work for them. And so they thought they were going to change something for the race and take a penalty, but they ended up just adjusting what they had, adjusting the things they're allowed to adjust, and just went with it. And it didn't seem too bad. It didn't seem too bad, but even at like Magnussen was racing with Lewis Hamilton, and Magnussen was doing the thing where it's like, you go first, and you'd get him on the next DRS straight. So and Mick Schumacher didn't race because they completely destroyed his car in qualifying.
Oh, okay. I remember hearing about that.
Which it looked, when you saw it live, it looked really bad. But I guess because like one of the tires flew off the back, and it completely destroyed like the camera housing on top, which also has the communication. So they literally didn't know if he was okay because he couldn't communicate because the thing was broken.
Oh, okay.
Because if they later on next day they showed like the onboard of the crash, and like he seemed to be conscious the whole time, so he seemed to be fine. So, but I guess because they didn't know, they were using an abundance of caution. There was one that I was watching the replay, and there was Julian Palmer one, and he was saying like, oh, he put his visor up, he's okay. And I like rewatched the video, and it's like, he didn't put his visor up. Are you fucking joking? Like you're just trying to pretend everything's okay. And then I looked at the onboard. Oh, he totally put his visor up. How the fuck did he see that?
Yeah, did he see? Well, I might have spotted.
Well, Julianne Palmer. Well, they could have had a huge video, but also Julianne Palmer was an F1 driver, so he probably has great vision. So.
Oh, okay. That's true too. Yeah. Now, whose lights weren't working on the back?
Leclerc.
Because I know they kept saying something about like, should he be racing like that? Isn't that a safety thing? They were kind of going back and forth.
Yeah, but the lights were working later on, so I'm not sure. Because the lights turn on, it means like you're harvesting energy, which basically means you're lifting and coasting and kind of letting the back rear brakes it's called engine braking because they have the calipers on there that reclaim the energy through the motion of the tires, and so it acts as a brake. So instead of like braking into a corner, you just coast in the corner and let the energy reclaimers brake the car for you. So that those lights turn on when you're doing that, and also it gives you can deploy the extra boost if you have it to deploy. So that's the extra thing in these cars, which some people are saying might be the trick that helps Mercedes, because even though the engines are frozen for the rest of the year, there are parts that are still available to work on, and one of those is the energy harvesting deployment part of the engine.
Oh,
so
okay.
You can change those up until the Dutch Grand Prix.
Oh, okay.
And some people are saying like that's what the Mercedes is missing, is this extra electrical boost from the engine. So if they can figure that out in time, then like maybe the Mercedes engine will be a lot better. And you had McLaren get up there, and I think Norris finished in like fifth place, which was really good for them because they looked really bad recently.
Seventh. He finished in seventh.
Oh, seventh? Okay.
Yeah, Russell was in fifth.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so yeah, it was Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, and then Perez, Russell, Ocon, yeah, because Ocon and Norris were like drag racing at the last corner, which last year Bottas got by him at the last corner and stole his podium from Ocon. He like sadly gets on the radio like, no, but this time he gets the win. So yeah, those Alpines are looking pretty good. I mean, they're not like the top team, but they look like they're up there.
They look like they're having fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a good race. I watched it. I didn't get to watch it live, of course, but watched it all the way through last Sunday, and I was satisfied with it.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, that's the thing with like these races this year, at least so far, is like normally how you'd watch an F1 race is you watch the first lap, and if there isn't a wreck, then you can kind of just like continue about doing your chores or whatever project you're working on. And then you just listen for something to happen. It's like, oh, I should be watching. Yeah. No, but with like these races, like there's no time. You can't like look away from them. There's always something happening.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I was doing something and I was like, well, I'll listen to this in the background. And it's like, nope, it was always, and also like for some reason this time, like the app worked really good. Like I've had it before where it freezes up on me and stuff, and it's like, or it stops and then restarts like live or like in the concurrent running, and it's like, oh, I missed a bunch of stuff, but if you go back, it's just going to sit there and pinwheel on you.
Yeah.
And this one, like, it worked very smoothly all the way through. I think it was the first one that did that, where it was like, oh, I didn't have to.
I haven't had that problem, but I can see it happen.
Sometimes it happens here. I don't know why.
I don't know. It could be. I don't know. Like, because I think I never had a problem like that on my computer, but like on the on my tablets, that'll happen.
Yeah,
I'll get weird when I watch old races. Like it'll just suddenly reset and go back to the beginning of the race. I'm like, the fuck is that about?
Yeah.
But yeah, now we have the new season. I've been watching the old races, and now I've been watching basically everything. So I've watched like 30 things since because I've realized like I haven't like paid attention to Adult Swim for like, I don't know, like 10 years. So like, I mean, except for like Rick and Morty, but like I don't even know what's on there. But because all that stuff's on HBO Max, I got to some of it, and I was like what's on there? And am I coming through okay? Because like my computer seems to be very okay.
Oh.
He must have walked away.
Okay.
Oh crap! Now my Sorry, my computer's all over the place at the moment.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't think it's the internet. I think it's my computer.
yeah, because you don't seem to be dragging or anything. So
Yeah,
Well, I have
not
like,
really on my end either.
well, I have it like my like the video. I can see it. It'll just suddenly stop and then pick up. But that's like, but I can hear you guys fine. So it's just my computer.
yeah.
Like right now it's saying like the page is unresponsive for Google thing. Anyways, let's see what I saw. Anyway, so one of the shows I watched and like it's already canceled, but I loved it. Is there's 2 seasons. It's called Hot Streets.
Okay.
Which is like vaguely a send up of like Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Like
Okay.
there's some stuff where it's like it's kind of Scooby Doo, it's kind of Johnny's Quest, it's kind of whatever, but it's not
It's
really
70s era cartoons.
Yeah.
Okay.
But all right, it's super weird. Like I don't know if anybody's gonna like it. And also, there's like it has Justin Roiland as like playing the a dog character. It's basically a Scooby Doo character, but he's called Chubby Wubbies, and he's like, and but it's like, yeah, I think Justin Roiland's being a bit spread too thin. He kind of can sound like 2 voices, and they're both annoying. But it's fine. What I really like is there's a character named Baranski, and he's just like this guy. He's just kind of this no nonsense guy who just like says weird things on occasion. And every episode it like it occurs in a different like location, and it's like there's always like aliens or some ancient like mysticism thing they have to stop. And on the description says they're FBI agents on the Hot Streets division, but there's no ever mention of FBI. It's just always Hot Streets. It's like, this is a Hot Streets case. We're with Hot Streets. This is a Hot Streets. It's always Hot Streets. They have a funny car that has 2 driver wheels on the front, and they both, even though they're both driving forward, like both of them are doing the like pretend to drive thing. There's just like it's almost like David Lynch kind of like dreamlike logic stuff where it's like people don't react to some things and some things people overreact to, and the dialogue is just kind of like discordant and not connected sometimes. But I was like, but yeah, I really liked Hot Streets. So, but it's super weird and it's probably not easy to get into. But like, give it 2 episodes, I'd say.
Okay, we'll check it out.
And there's like a pilot that you can't find anywhere. I had to like buy it on YouTube, but so that's weird.
So Hot Streets, check that out.
It's
So it's like that. Yeah, I like that kind of weird, discordant humor. So
Yeah.
let's see.
It's on
It's on HBO Max.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Moon Knight, which I didn't know anything about, but I recognize one of the actors in it. So Oscar Isaac. Huh?
This is Andrew. This is Andrew's field. Is he here?
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, what?
Talking about Moon Knight.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I read the... Sorry, I'm trying to stay awake. 1970s comic. Oh, okay. Oh, distracted by the timer. 1970s comic. He made his first debut in Werewolf by Night. Also have that big omnibus here because I love werewolves for some reason. Don't know why. Anyway, he's more of a campy type of fucking guy when he comes out in like the 70s and 80s and shit. Like he does have like badassery stuff. Like, yeah, he's still Mark Spector, and he's still Stephen Wright, and he's like a cabbie as well, and like another personality, and also their shit, and kind of like hangs out in a seedy bar as the cabbie to get info on the underworld, and rides around with his Duchamp and a fucking crescent moon, a helicopter and shit. And has like a fucking like weird like girlfriend and shit. And that's like all in the 70s and 80s stuff. And then he gets like way more serious in like the recent comics where he's like literally battling nightmares under your bed. Like it gets way more dark and way more gritty and realistic. And that's kind of what I like about this show so far, because it like touches on both of those things. Like it has like a camp or kind of humor to it, but it also has dark and grittiness to it as well. Yeah, Ethan Hawke's really. I like the fact they cast him as a villain in it. Oscar Isaac is a good choice for the main lead. I don't know a lot of the other people. I'm assuming his wife, or I can't remember her name from the second episode. I'm probably sure
Layla or something.
that's what I thought, but I'm not sure because I mean, like his love interest with Stephen Wright is trying to think of the damn name from the 70s, 80s comic, and I'm drawing a blank. But yeah, so I mean, it seems like a pretty good show so far. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to have the same 6 or 7 episode run that every other Marvel show's had.
Yeah, I think it's 8.
Oh, 8. Okay, so I mean, hopefully that's enough episodes to like really bring the Egyptian god theme home and like have a nice little adventure. Because since they're already in Egypt at the end of the second episode, I mean, it shouldn't drag its feet getting there like the other shows kind of have off the bat. But yeah, I mean, hopefully this is for bigger and better things. I'm actually just as excited to see DC do stuff with all their new properties they got coming out, like Doctor Fate and Adam and Black Adam and new Shazam movie, new Aquaman movie. I think DC is really going to start hitting its stride soon and maybe give Marvel a run for its money. Hopefully, especially with Peacemaker doing really well and Suicide Squad, or the last Suicide Squad movie doing well.
Yeah, Peacemaker was like one of those. It was like that Watchmen thing they did on HBO. Like I didn't think anything about it when I heard about it, and then I watched it, and I was like Conlon suggested Watchmen to me. I was like, oh yeah, this is really good. It's like I did not expect to enjoy that, and the same thing with Peacekeeper. It's like, oh, this John Cena is not an entertainment choice for me, but I watched it and I liked it, and I've seen 2 episodes of this, and it's like it's a complicated like trying to understand him as a character.
Yeah,
because
there's
we're
just
dealing
not enough.
with a guy who's like, is he schizophrenic? What's going on here? Or is he possessed? It's like, but then they sort of make it like, oh, okay.
Well, I mean, like,
but there's a bit too much mystery at the moment because they haven't like I tell you how things work necessarily. You're just kind of feeling it out. So, but I still like it. It's weird and dark.
Well, I mean, it's like every comic. Like I don't even have like the most recent one, which is supposedly what the God damn it, Mark is based off of. But at the same time, like because I watched like the first Easter egg or the Easter eggs for the first show, kind of like going over like, hey, what this means? This comics comes from, and like they were talking about the multitudes of 3 in every shot. So every time you saw Steven, there'd be a left side and a right side as well as a straight on to his reflection or his image. And so it was like, well, since 3 personalities of, Mark Spector and Stephen Wright and the other guy, I can't remember his damn name right now.
Khonshu?
Khonshu. But there is like an actual another like human being, like personality in the earlier comics. And that was way more campy and kind of ridiculous. I mean, it's almost kind of like they wanted to rip off Batman, but just give him multiple personalities because he was a billionaire that just like I don't know if he was schizophrenic or he just like playing other people in order to do these roles, like be the informant cabbie. So I'm gonna play this guy for a day and then toss this disguise off and then be a billionaire playboy. That's what it seemed to come across as his original run. And then now it's like literally, no, he's just multiple people segmented in the same body. And yes, he is dead or should be dead. I mean, because he like dies under the statue of Khonshu on a mercenary contract. And then, yeah, he brings him back as his avatar warrior, what have you. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think this show has more promise than some of the other Marvel shows that have come out. I mean, Hawkeye was okay. Yeah. I thought Winter Soldier and Falcon was pretty bad. Especially now that I learned that they re-edited it and then re-edited it again and uploaded it because they took all the blood and the gore out of it. And then they put it back up again after when people were like, you took all the blood and the gore out of it. And it's like, oh yeah, sorry, our bad. Oops.
We accidentally put the Chinese edit in.
I mean, I didn't watch WandaVision, but I didn't really like the idea of that show. I'm sure people. I mean, I'm sure it was actually a good show. I know my wife liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was cool, but I thought it was easy to bounce off of too, because it's more about the idea of it rather than the execution.
And then crap, what was the other one?
Loki.
Yeah, Loki. That one I probably enjoyed the most so far, just as a complete show. I guess we'll see how Moon Knight ends up.
Although I am saddened that meme of Moon Knight that got out was just a Photoshop where he's like throwing a bunch of stuff and it says "Go random bullshit," but that's not in the actual comic book.
It should be.
Yeah.
It could still be. Who knows? Miss Marvel trailer looked interesting, but looks like Scott Pilgrim meets a Marvel character.
Yeah, I mean, it looks different. You know, it's for kids, so if it's not exactly for me, but hopefully there's stuff to like there. Because I've liked what they've had these cartoon of like the new Avengers that's on the Disney service. You can find them, but they're like a lot of like they're like either hour TV movies or they're kind of like 15-minute episodes. But like that stuff's good, but they're kind of like ignoring that stuff. That's just kind of like side cartoon stuff.
It was interesting when I went to watch Moon Knight on Disney Plus. The first time ever I logged in, it's like, "Are you over 18?" It's like, well, yeah. It's never been asked by Disney if I'm over 18, but I guess when I was watching Moon Knight, it's like, oh, they're swearing and stuff in this. Is like, oh, okay, that's why.
Well, it's also supposed to be because they put all the Netflix shows on there, which had a lot more sex and violence.
Oh, okay.
They're trying to keep all their violent stuff separate on Hulu, and then put all the kid-friendly shit on Disney Plus, which I get it. You can get 2 subscriptions instead of 1, but at the same time, I think it's ridiculous that Disney. It's not like communist fucking Russia or China where you gotta censor the shit out of everything. You're not living in 1950s suburbia and white country.
I mean that's always Disney been that way. Like remember, like they didn't release PG-13 movies till like Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, I know, like TriStar.
But also they always had like separate companies to release their R-rated stuff, like Hollywood Pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah, the hardest rated Disney branded movie for a long time was The Black Hole because it was PG, which that was the first non-G rated movie they'd made. It was also the greatest and the worst. Same time. Weird, but yeah.
No, I mean it's just I get it. That's their image, and that's what they sell people. They get them to come to their fucking park and buy their shit.
But now that they add this age gate, now they can just have everything on there, and it's up to you to whether you want to censor it from your children. So.
Yeah, and I'm like a grown man with a Disney subscription, so it's like, yeah, show me the worst you got.
Show me Mickey Mouse with nuts and balls. Let's go.
Well, and all those Star Wars shows are pretty violent, and those aren't like on TV, so they're not like rated TVMA. Like they're basically R-rated stuff, just without swearing.
I thought it was weird, yeah, because I clicked on Moon Knight. It's like, are you 18? It's like, ooh, what am I going to see?
No, it was just something new to where it's like they want you to make like separate. Oh, call's gonna end. It might be an extra call because I need to start my computer, so I will call you guys back.
All right.
Did you? Because Game Pass has MLB The Show 22, but they don't have Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, do they?
I can't remember. I don't think so.
Okay, because I managed to pick up like one of the ones with extra DLC on it, and I actually played co-op with my wife last night, and I realized I either need a way bigger TV or we both need to sit on the floor directly in front of the TV in order to read any of the dialogue on anything.
Okay.
Jesus fucking Christ. Like, the dialogue boxes are fucking ridiculously small.
That's weird.
Well, I mean, otherwise the game's pretty fucking enjoyable. It just kind of sucks because, like, going to your inventory screen, like, having any cutscenes, any, like, dialogue where it's all in, like, subtitles, insanely hard to see. Like, when we're setting up characters and stuff. Like, I made my guy, like, an Asian guy in drag that was, like, all muscly and shit. And then my wife made this, like, bald, husky-voiced woman that was blue or whatever to be her character and shit. And we get to, like, the armor part and, like, all this other stuff, and it's like, I can't even see what the fuck color pattern it says it is. I'm just going to choose based on visual pattern alone.
Hello.
We're back.
Welcome to the American Greed Factory podcast. Are we going out still?
Yeah, we're out. We're live.
Okay. Ready to talk about The Witcher Season 2?
Yes.
Or was there something else you guys want to talk about?
Oh, Andrew was talking about Tiny Tina's something
Wonderlands. Yeah, Wonderlands, yeah. Which is basically just a reskin of Borderlands 3 with some new content in there.
Yeah, I heard good things about it. I heard weirdly people are comparing it to Elden Ring in some weird way.
Is this a video game?
Yeah.
It's a video game.
Oh, okay.
But no, I mean, it's a strong game so far. I like MLB The Show 22 as well. They just didn't seem to add a lot of stuff to franchise or Road to the Show this year, or at least a lot more improvements this year. So kind of feels, because that's the only ones I play, they added a bunch of shit to like Diamond Dynasty, which is just a cash grab. But yeah, I guess I don't know if anybody else has been playing any new games recently, but
I've been playing a bunch, but we don't have time to talk about them because I have about like 7 hours of conversation to talk about Elden Ring and Horizon Forbidden West, but I'm not going to talk about them here, so or at least not right now. Oh yeah, I watched Witcher Season 2. I think I was the last one to watch this, but I just.
Like, well, I mean, I didn't watch all of it because
Yeah, I heard a lot of bad things about it, which is why I just like didn't watch it. And then I watched it, and I was like, I forget what everyone hated about it, but I thought it was a cool season. So.
Yeah, I binged it like 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
When I was doing, something with a model. And it's like, yeah, about 3 episodes in, it's like I was totally distracted from what I was doing, just watching the show.
I thought like the special effects are like way better this season. Like they're very impressive. So
yeah, that was good. And I liked it. Seemed to have like the story came together a little better and was a little more focused.
Yeah, well, it wasn't like intentionally disjointed like the first season. So
yeah, so I like that, and we got more insight into who the Witchers were, but we read the books for the show, so it's like I knew a lot of this stuff, but it was fun to see it. I think Henry Cavill like really likes this character, so he makes him like, oh yeah, this guy's like really invested in this character, and he seems to have a lot of fun with it.
Well,
I didn't know he was British.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
Well, he's probably most famous for playing like well, technically an alien, but American characters.
Oh yeah, he did the weird Superman. Kevin Spacey, right?
No, he did.
No, it's Brandon Routh.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, he's the most recent Superman before they replace him with whoever.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
He was in, Man of Steel. So,
yeah.
Batman versus Superman, or Batman v Superman.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm thinking of somebody else.
Justice League. Yeah, you're thinking of Brandon Routh. So
yeah.
But no, I mean, sorry. The reason I didn't finish the second season is because I hated it so much. I literally stopped watching it because it was so shitty. So, because I've read all the books and I've read all the comics and played almost all the video games, so it's like I couldn't deal with it, so I just stopped watching it.
What caught your ire?
It's just that basically the show's about Yennefer and about friggin' basically it just shits on all the relationships already built up and all the other canon stuff, and just kind of disregards it and makes it kind of a shitty show because like everybody just gets killed off and it's like 3 main characters and that's pretty much it. It's just
I mean the whole season's kind of about like Yennefer and Geralt weirdly becoming like a mother and father to the supreme child that will end all of time.
Yeah, I mean they still do that in the games and the books though. It's not like, I mean, yes, people die and things change and everything else, but at the same time,
like I don't know, like I'm not sure like who they killed off except for a lot of the Witchers, but aren't the Witchers pretty much already dead? And so this is kind of like actually involving too many Witchers for the fiction that they're basing it on.
Well, I mean, because you played Witcher 3, right? Because I think that's what most people are familiar with for video games. Like Eskel and Lambert are obviously still very much alive and well in that, and that's, oh god, like fucking 10 years
I
after
can't
the books are
remember
over.
that. I can't remember.
I mean, just saying.
Yeah,
it's like,
all the video games take place after the after the books because the author didn't like the video games. So
yeah. No, I'm just saying, not that the author thinks those are canon or good canon either, but at the same time, I think people have a lot bigger connection with those because it has more realistic relationship dynamic between people that can't have kids and the kid they pretty much adopted as their daughter. Whereas this one just seems kind of weird because Siri is trying to become a Witcher, which I thought was kind of cool at first. And then it's like, oh no, she just ends up killing everybody and like going fucking berserk and shit. And it's like, oh, okay, no, that doesn't make any sense at all.
I mean, that only happens in the last episode.
Oh, I know it does. I didn't say it happened.
I thought you said you stopped watching it.
Doesn't mean. I mean, I read what the ending was because I wanted to see, because my wife actually watched the last episode. Even she stopped watching it, and she hasn't even, this is her only exposure to The Witcher. So she's like, I hated that show. So I was like, yep, it was pretty bad. So, I mean, I don't think the casting's bad. I think Henry Cavill's amazing as Geralt. It'd be nice to see them actually like try to do something with that show besides what they're already doing. But I mean, I don't know.
Actually, the most disappointing thing I have the show is at the end of the season, there's a teaser for a prequel series.
Oh, okay. Well, because I know that they had that anime that explained Vesemir's thing a lot better. That was really good. But yeah, like I guess I know there's a teaser for a prequel series at the end.
Yeah, it's a whole nother show, and none of them the same cast. It's just like the kind of history of the pre-world of The Witcher.
Oh,
Yeah, where it's like looks more like Star Trek.
Oh.
Yeah. It's like it's like the Elf War or whatever or something. There's a lot more.
Oh, I mean, the books have a lot of cool stuff with the elves in it because I mean the elves are a dying race just like they are in the second season here. Because I mean, they only have so long they can procreate, and then usually they just get old and die. And the young elves aren't interested in procreating, continuing the race. They're interested in getting back all these cities and all this territory from the humans and the dwarves and everybody else that's fucked them over during the Great Cataclysm.
I love that one scene that was like horrifying, where the lady just like kind of freezes time while everybody can still move their eyeballs, and she's just like casually killing them by shoving things into their brains and eyeballs and stuff. I don't know if you remember that scene.
No, I do.
Yeah, or Nathan might. I don't know if I remember that because I don't know what episode it was. I think I stopped watching.
It's a later. It's like before they kill the elf baby or whatever.
Okay, so yeah, I think I only got to like episode 5 where I stopped watching.
Yeah, someone like me who doesn't know much about the video games or play video games or read the comics and has just read like some of the main books, it's like, yeah, I find this to be satisfying, but this isn't like Lord of the Rings for me where I have it all in my head indexed. Like, it's like, oh yeah, this is what happens to that character. This isn't even, I don't even know this as well as I do like the Wheel of Time stuff. So for me, I just consider this purely casual viewing, and I was entertained by it.
Yeah. Also, like I've kind of like gone around on the stuff where it's like I used to like harp on things that were adaptations for not being like faithful to the original, and now I'm kind of like coming around to the idea of like, well, we don't just need like a visual representation exactly of what the original thing is. Like the TV shows and movies kind of just need to do their own thing, and like I'm okay with that as long as they don't necessarily like betray like the sort of the ethos of the show.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, Terminator 3.
No, I mean, I don't think necessarily. I mean, Walking Dead obviously had some main parts in it that came directly from the comics and didn't come over to the show because, yeah, you need to change stuff up. You can't just show a live action version of a book. It's not, I mean, yes, it'll draw new viewers in that haven't read the book, but it won't please the people that are hardcore fans of it to begin with because they want to see something more add to the story, more depth to what they love. But at the same time, I
think people that are fans just want to see the book exactly as they read it. That's what the anger is usually about. But actually, I'm not really thinking about anger of The Witcher. I'm kind of more thinking of like the anger around Halo right now. But I'll wait till you see that, because actually, like, I don't hate Halo, but I'm like interested in it. I think it's way better than those trailers made it seem out to be. But it's also like The thing about Halo is like there's no likable characters. Like,
Yeah.
like even Cortana's a fucking asshole.
Yeah, everyone's evil in Halo, and the Master Chief is kind of lost. And I didn't realize that was Liv Schreiber's half brother
Oh, okay, yeah.
until I looked it up, because I thought that guy was like, that guy looks French or something. Like that's what he's, because everyone's making a big deal about it. He has his helmet off, and
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah. Everybody gets mad because they took his helmet off because it has to be, we have to show emotions with the Master Chief, and they're like, no, the Master Chief's supposed to be reflective of the people that are controlling him. And it's like funny
not
because
in
like,
a TV show, but
Yeah.
okay.
well, also like thing is like the thing with the Halo video games is like the games are very simple, with like a wide vista of action going on, and they're very simple, but they're backed by very intricate lore, but it's never revealed in the game. You have to go out and seek that stuff yourself. And
Right.
so within the game, it's just about like, oh, the humans are on the back foot. They're about to be annihilated. And we put all the blame of humanity on Master Chief's shoulders, and he shoulders the blame and doesn't complain about it and solves all our problems. We like that because we're all psycho business managers.
Yeah.
But like here, it's like, oh, when you dig in deep, oh, the USNC, oh, the aliens are evil. They want to destroy all of humanity. That's evil. Guess what? Humans are even worse because they're also destroying humanity to try to save it.
Well, they make the UNSC and the humans, and I know you haven't seen this, so I'm not going to go too deep, but they're a lot more like the corporations and aliens than they are like, oh, this desperate like combine of a government and some private corporations in the military fighting against the extinction of humanity. Whereas in this, they're more like everyone has an agenda. All their military and especially their civilian leaders are just terrible people who just make threats. It's always threats. I got to make a threat. And it's like, yeah, well, why would you fight for these people? They all suck. I mean, the aliens suck too, but they're just religious.
They immediately, like almost frame one, show you how bad the aliens are, showing what plasma weapons does to humans. It's like extremely violent, almost comically violent. It's like a Mortal Kombat video game.
Yeah. It's like when Ed 209 shoots the guy in the boardroom. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, those are very effective weapons. Wow, I just tear people to shreds, which they actually do, but it's
But yeah. But I'd say check it out. Either hate it or try to find something good in it. But I'm curious about it, so I'm fine with it so far. It doesn't do anything perfect, but I understand.
Yeah, they had to make a story out of something.
Yeah,
that you could.
Well, yeah. Well, the problem is like what you want to see is like what Halo does is like gigantic vistas of combat. What can you do with a TV show? Not that.
Yeah, you do that once or twice, but then you've blown your budget for the year. And
Yeah. I mean, you had that big action scene in the first episode, and there's been pretty much no action since.
Yeah. Well, like, here's the thing, back to our theme about adaptations of things. And here's something I know, like Lord of the Rings. It's like when Peter Jackson did the Lord of the Rings, I know all those books front to back and all the history around them and everything. And I thought those were good. I enjoyed them. I know some people want to quibble about some things, but I thought overall it's like, oh yeah, they got the message. These were really good movies. They were very long, but they didn't seem very long. They captured the interesting points. The way they visualized Tolkien's world, I thought was great. And then we have The Hobbit. And that's where it's like, they didn't, not only did they change the story around, but they added way too much. Like The Hobbit could have been a 1 3-hour one and done, or a 2-hour, sequel. What they did was way too long. And I was a big fan of Jackson's like original Lord of the Rings. I don't even own The Hobbit. I was like, well, I saw it in the theaters, and I mean, it didn't like destroy me as a human, but
I like the first movie that they did in that. But actually, I was actually most impressed with the 60 frames per second, which I guess made a lot of people sick. But for me, it's like, oh wow, I can see all the action.
Not only did I do that, I did it in 3D. I got IMAX.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought it was great. I mean, it looked wonderful. I mean, he always makes good movies.
But I never bothered to see the something of Smog, the Desolation of Smog.
Desolation of Smog.
And I don't even know what the last one is.
The thing was, The Hobbit was written after the Lord of the Rings, and The Hobbit was a pared down story to get you ready for The Lord of the Rings. Because The Lord of the Rings was, you read a book and a history lesson as you go. Those were the books, and that was cool. Nobody had really done that kind of quality of history and fantasy before Tolkien did it. And so when you're reading it when you're 12 years old, it's like, this is amazing. The Hobbit was kind of a book geared to younger people to get you into that world, because it was written after the trilogy. So it was kind of a way to get you into it. And then it's like, well, once you're in this world, you can engage with the other books and the wider world and the mythos and the legend and everything and the War of the Rings and all that. But the problem with The Hobbit was they, like the movies, like they'd already told that story. So they just crammed so much stuff into it. It was unenjoyable. It could have been more pared down, a simple story. The story as written was cool, and you could have just done that. You didn't need to add Legolas and all those other people that were not in The Hobbit.
Well, I did bother after watching the Halo series and all the sort of complaints about it. Although I've been hearing more positive stuff, I did bother to pick up the Fall of Reach book. So that's
yeah.
Which
I like Pablo Schreiber's Twitter, because he basically had a picture of him with the helmet off, and he's like, for all the fans that love it, thank you. We're working really hard to make this dream come true. And for all you guys that hate it, I love you too. And I know you're passionate about this, and we're going to try to make this good. Because he's like acknowledging, like, wow, there's a lot of hate out there, and I hear the hate, and I read the hate, and we want you guys to like it too. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was good. Well, also I think this also has a weird production because it got shut down halfway through because of COVID. And they're already greenlit for a season 2, so it doesn't matter how well they perform in the first season. Although when I first watched this, it had terrible video quality. And
it had kind of like that low frame or low streaming, rounded off look. Yeah, mine was doing that too.
And I think that's because so many people are streaming it, so that's probably a good thing. I had to do something stupid where I had to go download the app on a tablet to then download the episode so I could watch it, so it didn't look like shit. Although if you watch it now, it's fine, but they must have been overloaded.
I put up with the rounding for about 15 minutes, and I was like, stop, and I came back 2 days later, and it was fine. So, because I wanted to see that combat scene again. I was like, what did they shoot this with, a VHS camera? Why does it look like this? Is this an effect they're going for? And then it would stop, and it would get real choppy on me. I was like, okay, there's like a billion people on the site, so come back to this later. But yeah, I know what you're saying, Andrew, about adaptations, and if you're really into the lore, and because this has so much, because The Witcher has so much source material behind it, and video games and comic books, which from what I've read, everyone seems to be kind of divided about too, whether they like it or don't like it. So yeah, I get if you're really into the material.
No, I mean, I heard a lot of bad things. That's why I didn't watch it. And then when I watched it, I didn't know what people hated about it. But
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like Game of Thrones. Like, reading all the books that are actually out from George, even one of the prequel books, even though now he's coming out with another prequel book, because, but at the same time, like, all those so far have been pretty well done to the point that it's like, yeah, I really respect that the show, it didn't do everything the same, and it definitely, chose to take some creative liberties somewhere, but it also, at a certain point, it just divulged so much from the logical path that story should take with the characters they already set up in the backstory, that they just shit all over everything, and it just basically made it like you wasted your time watching how many seasons of a show or reading so many books. So I mean, it's just, that's more my feeling with the way Witcher is right now.
I only read the first book, and I got through like halfway the second book, which the second book is still just short stories. So I never got to the full length book yet. So maybe I'll be mad when I get there.
Well, I mean, it's just I don't know. It's just, I love the fucking Witcher series because, yes, the first 2 books are more about just, hey, Geralt's just doing this monster contract, or happens to him, or, whatever. He runs into Yennefer for a while, or, he runs into so-and-so, and then
Dandelion.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. I like it. It's just, it was the life of a monster hunter. It's not like a solid quest you're doing for 5 years to find this one monster. No, you're just going from town to town, being hated and just getting fucked over in different ways all the time. It's just, that's exactly how his life is. And that's why I love the first season, because it was an exact representation of how the fuck his life is in the books. And then the second season comes along and just shits all over that completely. And so it's like, oh, okay, because like they actually started the second season with the story from the first book, and so it's like, oh, okay, they're gonna relive some of this stuff, and that. So I kind of expected a similar season to season one, where it's not them just immediately getting to Kaer Morhen right away, and then all this stuff starts.
Well, I mean, the first season has like 3 characters going in different arcs, where like one's in the past and one's in the present, and one's in like, well, not really the future, but and then they all intersect at the end. And this season it's just like they're all together and it's all moving forward in a logical like time loop. Although the only thing I don't get is like I don't like there's just warring armies, and there's like it seems to be like Nilfgaard and the magicians, and then like I don't really know what anybody's means. It just seems like everyone's evil. So.
No, and that's the only thing they get right from the books is everyone is evil and just wants Ciri for their own part of it. They want Ciri for her powers so they can resurrect the witches and take over the kingdom from the kings. They want Ciri for her elven blood so they can create a pure elf race and then kill all the humans and shit. They, it's just fucking that part's fine, and like I said, a lot of the casting is just fine or great in a lot of regards. There's nobody that's like really miscast, but at the same time, they're just misusing everybody. Why does Yennefer have so much goddamn plot with all this shit? I mean, I get it; she's one of the main characters in the books, probably the third big or main character from the books versus Geralt or Ciri, but at the same time, it's just her like living without magic powers for a little bit.
They have her jump between all the alliances, so you kind of get like all the different alliances, like what they're doing, sort of. Even though it seems like they're with the elves, and like the elves want a baby in a future, and then you got Nilfgaard, where it's like we want to take over the land, and then she's with the magicians, and they just want to be evil and have control, and then she leaves all of them. So she jumps around between all the like forces, and then she ends up at Kaer Morhen, and then and then she's like betraying Geralt for the weird like witch lady that's also like a Hansel and Gretel witch thing. Yeah.
No,
yeah,
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, there's parts from Blood of the Elves in second season, so I mean, it's not like it's totally getting rid of the books or whatever and not taking them into effect at all. But like,
well, I think actually I saw like some interview with the showrunners, and they're trying to do their own thing, so I think they're sort of abandoning the books.
Yeah, which I'm not.
Well, it's like. It sounded like it was like under request of the author.
But I mean, either way, I don't know. It's like I'm just trying to explain why I feel badly about the show. Is just because if characters are written well and they have good motivation.
Well, see, the only thing I heard is like they were mad that Geralt didn't fuck Triss.
No. Hey, at least they're not mad that she's like kind of black. Like they were in season 1. So, I don't know. But at the same time, I mean, I think it's just stupid because you have well-written characters that have clear motivations and, like, they have something to work for, actual goals that make sense, and then they just throw all that out the window. They don't tweak it to make it more believable or just to add to it. They wholesale change it to make it a shitty plot point or something that resolves too quickly or makes no sense to have that struggle.
The only thing I didn't understand is at the end, and like maybe I was supposed to know this or not, but they have like at the end, it's like the one witch and the head of the night sky are like, yeah, we killed the baby, now we're getting ahead, like we're going against the elves. And then like the guy who was like the porcupine knight is like actually the head of Nilfgaard, and he's like immortal or something. And he turns around, and he's like, you didn't kill the baby, I killed the baby. And it was like dun dun dun. It was like, oh, was I supposed to know something here?
Yeah, because that's
oh, is that what happens?
Well, I mean, yeah, so that part's all in the book because I mean, as far as like the main plot of the book goes, Ciri's father, the porcupine knight, or I mean, I guess I don't exactly know how he's visually interpreted anymore in the books. So I can't.
Well, he's human
definitely
because the
not yet.
curse was lifted. I just remember him as
Yeah,
the porcupine.
there's a curse is lifted. He's kind of half human, half not human. Everybody's outraged. Blah blah blah. So anyway, him and his first wife have Siri, and then they're kind of just out and or they're going to Skellige and stuff like that, and coming back, and they're lost at sea, and nobody ever finds their bodies or anything. And then so later on, it's like, oh, King Emir, you know, he's the Golden Emperor, and he's going to unite all of the land and rule it and everything else. And everybody just keeps talking about King Emir and his legions of unstoppable united forces, because Nilfgaard's just a country run by the strongest person at the time. You can just go. The rulers can just go get killed at a moment's notice by somebody else that's wants to be a ruler. And so he's just seen as the one that can unite all of them to finally stop warring and killing each other to conquer all of the land. And so you keep hearing more about King Emil, like he's the the bright sun of everything and blah blah blah. And then so it finally gets to the point in the books where Geralt's gone back to Brockulon because he needs help healing because he's been injured. And then he gets this ragtag group of people together, a vampire, elf archery person, Dandelion, the guy that kidnapped Ciri to begin with, so the guy in the first and second season, and then who the hell's the last? Oh yeah, Yennefer. So they go on this quest to get the Fire Wizard that's also in the second season because he's the big bad. He tortured Dandelion and got away, and Yennefer almost killed him. And he's been the one pestering them and trying to, find Ciri, but also killing them or threatening them at every step. And so they finally confront that Fire Wizard, and he kills everyone in that party besides Yennefer and Geralt. The vampire gets killed, the elf gets killed, it's pregnant. Fucking everybody dies in that fucking party. No one's spared. It's fucking gruesome massacre. Like Ciri barely gets away from it, and she goes downstairs, and then it runs into her father, Emperor Emir. Like, it turns out he wants to have a baby with her because that'll create a pure blood person to rule everyone. It'll be the, pure blood to rule them all. It'll be the most powerful being in the universe. And so basically it's just her father wants to fuck her. He kills all these people and does all these things to topples empires and overturns the world to kidnap his own daughter because he had to create that bloodline in order to fuck it to create the complete human being. But also in the books, Ciri gets kidnapped by what's left of the elves, so they can drug her and rape her, basically to restore the seed. But the elf emperor at the time is so disgusted by her, he says he doesn't want to fuck her at all because his dick keeps going soft every time he tries to have sex with her because she finds her so disgusting, and then eventually dies at a certain point because he's just so old. But at the same time, in the video games, the guy that's leading Ciri around with clues and stuff like that, that's the guy that helped kidnap her because she can blink between dimension and dimension. And so he kidnaps her and takes her to be raped and drugged and stuff like that in order to procreate. And so she has a big fight with him and almost dies and gets away barely from the riders of the Wild Hunt. And then goes upon this cannibal hut where she almost gets killed by this cannibal that gets the drop on her or whatever, that then she burns the place down. It's just Ciri, for some reason, like in the end of the books, she's in Camelot with King Arthur. So I mean, there's a lot of interpretation you could do into this show. If you could have the main character end up with fucking King Arthur, I don't see why the hell he can't fucking do whatever you want.
Does the Wild Hunt show up a bunch in the books, because in the third Witcher video game they're prominent. They're kind of talking about how the Wild Hunt is finally invading like this realm.
So the Wild Hunt, the only time they talk about him in the books at all is that they mention they come during thunderstorms. Their ships are made of the dead toenails and fingernails, or of the dead. So that's why people trim the fingernails and toenails of the dead so they can't build more ships to invade Earth or whatever. And so, they actually are corporeal a little bit, but they don't really present themselves as a threat in the main books. But at the same time, it's more or less in the video games they become apparent and become a real force because, like I said, all the worlds are dying and winter's coming, basically, and shit.
Yeah.
So, it'd be nice to see another book because technically the book series isn't even over. I mean, like the last book that was released is actually like the fourth book in the series. So there's 8 books or 9 books, and then like so the eighth book has Geralt dying at the end of it, and Yennefer dying as well. And then all of a sudden at the end of that book, like they're both having a wedding feast. There are all their friends around them and retiring to a cottage. But then Ciri's in King Arthur's realm. So it's like I don't know if that was a dream sequence at the end or what. But at the same
They're
time,
gonna Magnum PI this shit.
yeah, I mean it's fucking weird.
Well,
Because-
there's a CD Projekt Red put out a new teaser for a new Witcher video game, but it's like a Witcher medallion, but it's not the wolf.
Yeah, it's
not
the cat.
Oh, who's that? Oh, is that Ciri or something, or is somebody else?
No, it's the cat medallion. Cat school. That's.
Oh, I thought it was a Witcher medallion. Oh, I thought it was a Witcher medallion.
Yeah, it is a Witcher medallion, but for the cat school, not the wolf school.
Oh, I didn't know there was different schools. Okay, I thought
Yeah,
that was
cat.
I
Wolf,
thought people
bear.
were just given medallions because for reasons.
No, I mean, people don't want it to be Ciri because for some reason everybody that read the books hates Ciri's character and thinks she's a horrible person. I don't get that considering how many times she was either forcibly raped and kidnapped and drugged. I mean, she was joined up with a gang of thieves in the books when she gets first transported to Nilfgaard.
Yeah, in the video game, she's just kind of a lonely, badass Witcher, kind of like Geralt. So she's like taking more like aspirations of Geralt than every other person in her family.
Oh, I know, and like she still kind of eventually does that in the books, but at the same time, I don't see why everybody thinks she's so horrible. She's so fucked up on like every goddamn turn of the book. Like literally, like she gets trapped. She flees this mage's tower in like the fourth book because they're trying to send her to a private school, and then she gets trapped in endless desert.
Maybe the fans are a bunch of misogynists. I don't know.
I don't know either. But
I want a badass guy fighting. Don't give me these ladies. I'm not woke.
But I mean, she finds like a half-starved unicorn that's her guide out of the desert. And they almost die from like this dune sandworm that like eats them almost, but it's poison.
Is that the unicorn Geralt and Yennefer have sex on?
Maybe, but at the same time,
That's
the only way she can save the unicorn and herself from poison is use fire magic. With Yennefer and Triss have told her many times, if she uses it, the world will end. And she uses it and immediately hears voices that tells her to not trust anyone and burn the whole world down. And so she stops using it after long enough to cure them from poison. She's teleported to Nilfgaard, where she's immediately captured by a Nilfgaard patrol. And then so they're on their way to a pub with another fugitive.
Sorry, every time you say Nilfgaard, I accidentally hear Milfgaard.
Oh, okay.
Protect you from cougars. Get your Milfgaard.
So anyway, they're at this pub. The fugitive they captured and her. And the fugitives' gang shows up to rescue them and kill all the Nilfgaardians. And so she runs off with them thinking she's saved, and instead she's molested twice by different members of the gang. So she's molested once by the guy she was with, and then a woman from the gang comes along and stops and like, "What are you doing? That's fucking sick." And then she takes her back to her bunker, and then she molests her. So apparently it's only sick because it was Heather's
going on in these books.
No, I know, but at the same time. And every
that seems very Game of Thrones, but I'm not sure which came first because I know they're written around the same time.
So she basically gets groomed and falls in love with this woman who's later killed by Nilfgaardians when they finally catch up with the gang, and she's the lone survivor of an ambush and badly wounded. And that's when she finally first teleports again. But at the same time, so that was the first instance of rape, or many instances of rape, since she was raped every time that woman took advantage of her for how long? I think she was with the gang for like 2 years at that point, by the time like they get ambushed and killed. And so then she just keeps teleporting between world after world and keeps seeing horrible things and people trying to murder her or this other shit. And then, yeah, it just gets, raped and drugged by these people, raped and drugged by these people. Her father wants to have sex with her, and yet she's the bad character in the book. She's the evil one. Just because she has a vagina or something. I don't understand what. I mean, but Yennefer is actually horrible.
Or do they think because she has powers that she doesn't understand that she should be able to protect herself, but because she doesn't understand, she can't?
I guess. I mean, technically, she doesn't understand the full extent of her powers until the last couple of books. But yeah, I mean, at the same time, like you have wizards willfully reconstructing corpses to eat and kill people for their own gains, and they're more sympathetic characters in the books apparently than a multiple rape victim. I don't understand. I don't understand the justification, because like every time I go on like the Witcher Reddit thread or used to, like anybody who's played any of the games or read any of the books is like, man, Ciri's such a bitch. I hate her. She's the most evil character in the books or the video games. It's like, man, you guys must really hate women or something. I don't know what the fuck's going on with you guys. Like, I thought Dandelion would be like the most hated, because like literally in the books, I think he actually accidentally saves Geralt once. He's like the reason Geralt always gets into fucking trouble or loses all of his money or some other fucking thing in the books. Like, he's always the reason for Geralt's misfortune. So I never understand why Geralt keeps him around. I think it'd just be easier to like, hey, just go over there. Don't follow me.
Yeah, I always saw them as like a reluctant pairing, where it's like, well, if we stick together, exciting things will happen. Nothing good will happen, but exciting things will happen, and I'll make a song out of it and carry it about the kingdoms and make a bunch of money.
I know everybody seems to hate the song that Dandelion sings in season 2. I didn't think it was that bad.
I like that. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought, it almost sounded like a modern song, but with just old instruments. Yeah, I thought it was cool. But... yeah, I still like throw a coin to your Witcher. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they, like I said, I don't think they did a bad job with any of the casting or even the songs in the show. Just I don't like where the plot's going necessarily. So.
Well, I don't know where it's going. It seems like just kingdoms fighting and magic will happen. So,
yeah.
And I'm waiting to see how that will involve Geralt. So,
well, because yeah, you played Witcher 3, because the vampire that he runs into in Toussaint, that's the vampire like he runs into in the books and joins his like little gang, because he just runs into him in a cemetery when they're on the run with Zoltan and a bunch of other people, and is like, oh, like you're a high vampire. He's like, yeah, but you don't want to kill me. He's like, no, I don't really drink blood anymore. I haven't drank blood for like 300 years or something like that. He just likes collecting plants and shit and eating animals. That's all he does. And he's like harmless and just a nice person. So it was just weird to see him die in the book, and also weird to see him alive in the game. Yeah. All right. So I guess, do you guys want to talk about the movie you guys watched?
No, because I forgot to watch it. You said you didn't.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't watch it either. So sorry.
We'll just save it for next time. It's one of the Akira Kurosawa movies we haven't watched. So I heard good things about it. So.
Yeah, and I saw there was a Kurosawa movie too. That's why I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then, did you buy it on your Amazon Fire Stick or something, or?
No, it's on Criterion.
Oh, because I looked it up today and it doesn't appear on there at all.
Unless they got rid of it. I mean, that'll happen. Okay.
I watched it last night.
Okay. Well, I tried watching it today and I couldn't find it. I tried looking up just Kurosawa films, it wasn't on there. I tried looking up the name, wasn't on there. So that's why, unless it's something to do with me using an Xbox to look at it, I don't know. That's not the first time that's happened. I can't remember what other movie it was where I looked for it and it didn't exist. And it's like, okay, that's nice.
Well, I type in the name and it comes up with the third Shadow Warrior. Well, that's not right. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, because that's what it came up. That's the only entry it came up with for me. So I was like, well, maybe that was the actual title, or that's what they. Because what didn't even match the runtime? Because I looked it up on Google because I didn't know what the movie was. Because I looked up when you sent me the email on Wednesday.
Well, it's giving a different director too. Oh, maybe they just took it off last night.
Well, I'll try and find it.
Was it a good movie, Nathan?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was dark and weird.
Well, it was the first color
like
one we've seen.
Elements, but I don't know if it was a Kurosawa movie.
Oh, I believe it.
No, Google had it as a Kurosawa movie, 2.5 hour runtime.
Yeah, it's
because I watched the third Shadow Warrior. That's what came up.
Oh no!
Oh, so it wasn't on Criterion at all.
Oh man, it was there. Huh? Because it was there. Like,
okay, Kagemusha was the Kurosawa movie. I think it's based on the same book. So they made another movie that I watched in black and white.
Because Kagemusha is in color. Huh.
Okay, well, I watched a weird. I watched something else. So none of us watched movie.
Nathan, tell us about the third Shadow Warrior. How was that?
It was weird and dark and cool.
Huh.
And it's basically, it reminded me of the Devil's Double. Because these guys were, the reason he's called the third Shadow Warrior is there's this, there's a lord. Let me find the names of it all here because I took my notes down. Yatsuka, and he has these people that are all doubles for him. And so basically this kid's taken as a peasant. He's promised to be a samurai, but really he's the third double of this warlord. He's what they call the daimyo of the clan. And he has to learn how to imitate this guy perfectly, how he walks, how he stands. They're played by the same actor, but the leader of the clan is like just a maniac. He's a wild guy. And it's like, oh, this is interesting because the Lord has him imitate him while he watches from the background. He's like, oh, you're doing a good job. You really. But then they go into battle and the Yatsuka loses his eye to an arrow. So guess what happens to all his doubles? They cut their eyes out. And then because they have to look exactly like the Lord. And so one of the doubles is like, no, I won't do it. And they kill him. So now there's only 2 of them left. And then another test he has to pass is he has to make love to the daimyo's mistress because she would know the difference. And so he does because the lady, there's apparently like a house. There's a lot of Japanese things going on in here. There's like a house matron of the concubines. And she's like, oh, yeah, this is how he does it. And this is how he learns. And you've got to go do this and make it right. And he thinks he did it right. But she knows he's not the same guy because he doesn't have a mole under his arm. But she keeps that to herself. And she falls in love with him. He's like, oh, but she doesn't let him know until later. It's like, I knew it wasn't him, but you're a nice guy. And then there's another battle where they get ambushed at night, and then they send the second guy out as a distraction so they can get the Lord out of the castle that's being ambushed. And then that guy gets shot with like 1,000 arrows, like over and over again. And then the Lord gets injured in the battle, and his double, his name's Kanasuki, is his double. It's like he's taking the Lord into the woods, and the guy got hit. The Lord got hit by a samurai sword, and he's taking him in the woods, and he's like, you've got to cut my arm off and cauterize the wound because his arm's just hanging limply at his side. And so he cuts his arm off, and then you see in his one eye the realization is like, oh, they're going to do this shit to me now. I'm going to lose an arm. So he strangles the Lord to death, and then he runs away. And then one of the henchmen, there was like 3 guys that were in on the plot besides the Lord to have all these doubles. And he catches up with him because he's hiding in a village because, of course, they've lost the war now. And then, of course, the idea that's building, what it's going to be is like this guy is going to pretend to be the Lord so they can, have all their political machinations and stuff. And and he loses his identity to the point that he acts exactly like the Lord. But then the people he's conspiring with, he kills the one guy that knows he's not the Lord. But then it turns out the people he's conspiring with, the woman of the other clan he married and her brother, like, oh, they know he's not who he says he is. But it's just for personal power, they're going to play along. But his sister's really evil. And he's like supposed to impregnate her or whatever. And she does that. It's kind of like that Kabuki theater stuff where the people have their eyebrows drawn up and they play a lot of those drums and stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on too, and people acting in a crazy, outrageous way. But in the end, he like impregnates the sister. They kill the mistress who really loves him from the Lord's mistress, and then they lock him in a cage forever because they don't want the secret to come out. So it's a happy ending. But it was kind of a cool movie. Apparently, not the right one.
Well, no, I'm gonna read the synopsis for Kagemusha, and I think it's based on the same story.
Okay.
Because it says Akira Kurosawa's lauded feudal epic presents the tale of a petty thief who is recruited to impersonate Shingen, an aging warlord, in order to avoid attacks by competing clans. When Shingen dies, his generals reluctantly agree to have the imposter take over as the powerful ruler. He soon begins to appreciate life as Shinjin, but his commitment to the role is tested when he must lead his troops to battle against the forces of a rival warlord.
Okay.
So it looks like it'd be somewhat different, but based on kind of a similar thing. So,
And it is not on.
no, it looks like they just took it off of Criterion. You can rent it everywhere, but it's off of Criterion. So.
You know what? I'll rent that one because I like Kurosawa movies, and being I watched the other movie that it was based on.
Are you okay watching that one next time then?
Yeah, that's great.
All right, I'll get on Amazon so you can watch it, Andrew. So.
Well, I was gonna say, next time I can actually be on is if we're gonna do 2 weeks every time is May 7th. Yeah, May 7th. Because
Okay.
the 2 weeks from now, I got a party thing I'm going to on Saturday night, so I'm not gonna be available.
All right, well, then just me and Nathan will talk about it then. So.
Okay.
You can
Well,
watch.
I mean,
it
I'll
on
still
your own.
watch it because I love Kurosawa, but I'm not gonna. I mean, I guess I could add my 2 cents in later.
And then you can pick your own movie again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, gas, food, and lodging I thought about on Criterion because that was another one from the same year as Light Sleeper. But other than that, I'll do some more perusing because I was on there and saw some new stuff added, so I'll have to look through stuff again.
All right. Well, this week for the American Greed Factory podcast, this is Nathan.
Sconlin?
Andrew.
Goodbye, America.